Have you ever tried to carry a conversation while you're on a public bus? There are lots of stops, a lot of other conversations going on all around you. It can be hard to focus and it can be a little chaotic with all the interference. Nobody can hear what's being said or focus on the root of the message sent to them because of the other conversations. Hearing and listening are two separate skills that work together to improve communication. No matter your environment, knowing the difference between these two skills and working to improve them can help us all to communicate more efficiently. The literal definitions of communication, hearing and listening, along with a brief overview of how they fit into the communication process, will be examined now. So, what is communication? According to the American Heritage College Dictionary, communication is the exchange of thoughts, messages, or information. It's an art using words effectively to impart your ideas or to study transmission of information that uses technology or newspapers, media, social media now, videos, live streams. Technology's come a long way. Which brings me to the fact that there are 5 main types of communication. Intrapersonal communication takes place within your own mind. When you're pepping yourself up for that speech or something that you've been a little nervous about, that is intrapersonal. Interpersonal involves another person, right? You're interacting with one another. And small groups consist of 3 to 5 people that interact for communication purposes. Anything more than 5 people is considered a public group, right? Public speakers get up all the time on TV or for morning news broadcasts. Speaking of broadcasting, that leads me to the 5th type of communication, which is mediated communication. What I'm doing right now to give my speech to my class is mediated communication because while I'm giving the speech to you girls, I am recording it on video to submit to my professor. Most of these types of communication require us to hear one another. So, what is hearing, right? Hearing is defined as the sense by which sound is perceived. We have 5 senses, right? So, the sound is perceived by our ears and we hear it. What happens when we listen to things? Well, if there are multiple noises in the room, multiple conversations going on the bus, then there can be some interference. It is the physical process of receiving stimuli through external components, right? So, did you know that we forget about half of what we hear immediately upon hearing it? Isn't that crazy? Hearing can lead to listening, but they're not the same thing. What is listening? Listening occurs when you make an effort to hear something and you pay attention. It's the cognitive process of the stimuli that we take in, all the sounds that we hear is the stimuli we take in, and then we process it in our brain, and that is listening. And even though it's the skill that we as humans use the most, it's the skill that we actually practice the least. In our society today, we are all sending out multiple messages, and listening can get overlooked as an important part of the process. So, what is the communication process again? The communication process requires both hearing and listening skills to improve communication. It can be best illustrated by the Shannon Weaver model that illustrates a sender who encodes a message. Let's use text messaging, right? You send out your text message, it goes through the phone, that's a particular channel, and is decoded by the receiver, right? And if nothing goes wrong, like autocorrect, there's no interference, then the person can give good feedback. And feedback is a concept that was introduced by theorist Norbert Wiener. So the noise and interference, it's a warning, right? It's something we have to practice to get through. We really have to practice that listening. Imagine you're on a public bus and you think you've missed your stop. The person across from you, you want to ask for directions, but they don't speak English. And luckily, we all have cell phones, so you can see that they're pointing on the map, and you know your stop is coming up next because their phone can show you. Because you've communicated with each other using this technology, this mediated communication, you are able to get your stop, right? You didn't miss the bus. Schutz theorizes that we communicate in order to fulfill three basic needs: affection or appreciation, control, and belonging. So while they are two separate skills, they have to work together. To conclude, communication is a process. It requires both listening, which is making an effort to pay attention, and hearing, which is the physical process of recognizing sound to improve communication, which is the process of exchanging thoughts, messages, or information. We have to take time to develop these skills individually if you want to improve your communication and be the most effective that you can be.